We in the information age, but really what that means, it's oversaturated. Like podcasts in the rap scene, it's confusing. Whether you going live or you zooming, you ain't on the same page when you read what the room thinks. Ha 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 ha. And the room thinks too many words, and every word is personal. When it's in type, it's even worse. You misunderstood? That's just how it works. So I'm a hypocrite, just like the rest of the earth. And racists think you hate them, so they gotta hate you first. Miscegenation is a crime. The melting pot is an urn. They want us normal and ignorable, kindling to burn. Sexism isn't a two-way street. Listen to her. And slut ain't got no use. It's an excuse for a slur. Don't blame it on the evil. It's just people who hurt. You don't get what you got, whether or not you deserve. Welcome to the Museum of Dead Words. I'm your tour guide, Dyalekt, alongside Pamela Capalid, Kristen Crouch, and Andrew J. Scoville. We spent the last few years pouring through online conversations to find words that kill discussion and ruin discourse. We dub these words dead and have been infiltrating art galleries, co-working spaces, and really everywhere we can get our hands on to show how these words died and why that matters. In the online series, we'll be spending a week with each word, with Blueprints in Progress on Tuesdays, that's today, where we get deep into how a word dies, and on Thursdays in the main event, which is a collaboration with artists from around the world to share their discussions and their experiences with these words. If you know a word or a phrase that is dying or may have died, please share in the chat, add to the Dead Word bucket on museumofdeadwords.com, or just drop me a line. I'm easy to find. A little about the museum. We opened when your mouths did, and thanks to the generous contribution of millions of donors like you, we've been able to identify and catalog a growing list of words in the English language that have fallen into disuse. You know, in this language, it's really hard to tell when a word stopped working. Being English, these words tend to colonize conversations and then just sit there, letting tone and context do all the work. Sometimes these words die, and it takes generations for anybody to notice. These words are dangerous, as words only become weapons when they cease to function as tools and their wits get sharper in direct proportion to the dulling of their meaning. This next word lived on the edge as a snarky synonym of more clear and direct words like earn and worth until the snark clouded the clarity. Nobody has any sympathy because you get what you deserve. Was born around the 13th century and died somewhere in the mid-19th century. To merit, to be worthy, for qualities or actions. And I want us to remember this thing. We're talking about qualities or actions. A funny aside, just desserts, that phrase that you get what you're supposed to get. Also a song that I did with MC Faceman. It's way back. That was a Halloween record from a few years ago. And Otis Clapp. What up, Otis Clapp? Anyway, so to merit, be worthy of qualities or actions. Just desserts was about you getting what you deserved. And the funny thing about it, it's derives from the same Latin term, the deservere, I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, that dessert comes from, like the thing that you eat after dinner that's delicious and has sugar in it. But that one has two S's, this one has one S. They're completely different meanings that come from the same word origin. I just thought that was real interesting. You know, other words, phrases, and idioms that come to mind are worth one's salt, meaning that you're competent and you deserve the thing that you earn. It's the connection between the quality of the person and the thing that they do to earn. It has roots in ancient Rome, where they would pay soldiers in salt, or sometimes they would give them an allowance to buy salt, because, you know, spices was always that thing. In fact, actually, to give a little other etymology stuff, because, you know, I always love doing that, the word salary is derived from the Latin salarium, which was originally referring to a soldier's allowance to buy salt. It's a really interesting and flexible word for deserve. The reason why it needed to exist when other words like worth and earn existed is because it was flexible. It gave both praise and disdain. And that's why it really took root, right? You didn't study for the test, so you got bad grades. You deserve bad grades because you didn't study for your test, right? It would be odd to say that you earned those bad grades, because earn connotes effort, not the lack of effort. So deserve is dope because deserve is really good for explaining things that are passive. In fact, a lot about deserve is passive. Deserve is about who you are, not only quantifiably, but who you are on the inside. You know, we discussed this with racism weeks ago and with evil last week. This who you are on the inside stuff, it's used to rationalize actions and ideas that don't necessarily match up. It seeks to answer the question of, why do things happen? if good things happen to me, it's because deep down I'm good, even if I haven't done the good things to earn them, right? Deserve is this weird mystical cosign. The whole thing of why things happen is all about the mystical cosign, and it's all confusing and it's all weird because who knows where these things kind of came from. But the old thinking of where things came from is that some sort of God, some deity decided things should happen. Droughts happen because you didn't pray enough, or you didn't pray to the right people, or you didn't do the right prayer. That birthmark on your cheek, it means that you came from a cursed people and are reaping the woes of your ancestors. When our myths left pages and got on screens, we developed a lot of visual cues for who deserves what and what outcomes. It's in actions, but again, it's really more in qualities. Characters who were considered brave, strong, and loyal received rewards, got to make it to the end, while the rude, the curt, the cowardly, the unkind to dogs, especially unkind to dogs. That's one of the biggest things. So the save the cat, unkind to dogs, it's a whole nother discussion. But the disloyal also, they usually ended up not only losing, but more often than not dying, even in otherwise like not really that violent film. This kind of mentality is best articulated in horror films. That's the thing I was looking for. Best articulated horror films. There's a great article by these guys, the Book Smugglers, specifically by Carly St. George. The article is called Trope Anatomy 101, The Girls Who Deserve to Die. You see, in horror, if you guys don't know, there's this thing of the final girl, often a virginal person who doesn't drink or do drugs or wear skimpy clothes, submissive until threatened, and most importantly, she's not like most girls, i.e. she likes things the viewer is expected to like, things that are coded good. Things that are pretty mundane, but they've been coded as masculine, actually, not just positive. Things like comic books or video games or weapons or sports, as a contrast to the things that are coded as being frivolous and dangerous girl things like makeup and fancy clothes. It's ill how commerce has to do with all of that. We're not even going to get in there, because what was really ill in this article that talked about who deserved what were who the girls were who died. And they were the slut, the outsider, the best friend, and the person of color. Now, slut, again, we're talking about someone whose actions not having anything to do with their qualities, but the qualities denoting how they were treated. We talked about that when we talked about the word slut. But person of color, that's a rough one, even though that's one that's not surprising at all. And why? Because these are labels. These are qualities. They're not people. In the U.S. alone, Native Americans were said to have deserved or gotten no sympathy for the way they were treated because they're savages. We talked about that again with the word racism. It's why people had no sympathy for Native Americans being separated from their families and forced into indoctrination camps. Black people were said to have the curse of Ham, or said to be savages, or to be too stupid, or even throughout history, not just recently, Black people have been said that we don't have rights because we just don't want them enough. In 1939, the SS St. Louis, a ship of Jewish refugees, was turned away from Florida because they weren't Americans. They weren't citizens. They weren't people. They were immigrants, and immigrants don't deserve our help. When they got back to Europe, 254 of the 937 passengers on the St. Louis were murdered. You know, these ideas started chipping away at the efficacy of deserve. And it started to die in the 1800s. Really around mid-1800s is when it went down. What's funny is around the same time is when the first modern credit reporting system was happening. And if you check out the stuff that I do with Brunch and Budget with Pamela Capalid over on the podcast, we've talked a lot about the history of credit and credit reporting. In the 1800s, there was the Mercantile Agency. They were trying to systemize a borrower's credit worthiness. It is often referred to as an early kind of redlining because it was mad subjective who deserved to be able to have money lent to them. They were often wealthy, often white. They had notes, and I'm quoting here, prudence in large transactions with all Jews should be used. I'm quoting poorly. Prudence in large transactions with all Jews should be used. That's a little tongue twistery. And when referring to places that had Black people working in them, they would refer to them as a low Negro shop. See, under scrutiny, these economic inequalities soared, but the language and the social part of it died. And I thought it was really best exemplified by John Stuart Mill's essay on utilitarianism. I'm going to give you a quick little spark notes on it so we can rush on through it. Not sure how familiar you are with utilitarianism. I wasn't really either. I'm not a giant all the edges and corners of philosophy cat. So when they're looking at utilitarianism, there's an excerpt where they decided it was necessary to look at justice, right? The idea of justice and what it means. Is justice a special thing that exists in nature? Is it formed by a combination of my feelings and their feelings? Is it, what are the qualities, talk about qualities, that make up justice? And they come up with 6 qualities that I think are really interesting. First, is considered unjust, because it's not always easy to say what's just, but you can say what's unjust. It's unjust to deprive someone of their rights. Although that one had exceptions. The argument they made is that while people could have rights that they shouldn't have, ones that were undeserved, they could have rights that harm others or take away from others. Laws themselves can be unjust. So while there could be this reasoning of depriving someone of legal rights, law can't be the ultimate standard of what is justice. Second form of injustice comes of depriving someone of something they have a moral right to possess, like stealing things. You can't steal stuff or take stuff from them. The third one, and this is where deserve really comes in, it's considered that it's just that a person receives what they deserve, what they should get, and unjust that they obtain something they don't deserve. Good people are thought to deserve good things if they've done right, and evil people are thought to deserve bad things as they've done wrong. And as this is unpacked, it gets a little bit messy because it gets kind of like, I don't know if y'all have seen The Good Show, The Good Place, but there's this overall life score kind of vibe to it. And I don't know if any of those really can be quantified. You can throw some numbers in there, but all of those numbers are kind of just going to be made up. The fourth form of injustice is to violate an agreement with someone or disappoint expectations that one knowingly nurtured. This is the kind of thing where if the second one is about stealing, about theft, the fourth one would be about breaking contracts or even wage theft. Wage theft is, one of the top forms of theft. I don't know if y'all know. People make contracts with employers, say, I'm gonna work for you, and we go and do the job, and we don't get paid, or we get paid less than we're supposed to get paid for the work. And again, this isn't a deserved thing, this is an earned thing. So as it turns from deserve more towards earn, it becomes more clear. The fifth one is that it's considered unjust to show favoritism and preference in inappropriate circumstances. I want to read this verbatim because I thought this was really interesting. However, it is not generally necessary to be impartial. It's not about being impartial. For example, one doesn't have to be impartial in the selection of friends. The claim is rather that a person should only be influenced by those considerations that should apply in a given circumstance. And I thought it really vibed a lot with the son of Baldwin quote that often ends up getting attributed to James Baldwin himself. And I noticed that is way too small on the screen. I'm going to pull the whole thing up. And what he says is, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and the denial of my humanity and right to exist. In other words, it's all good to have different opinions. Like if you don't like pineapple on your pizza and I like pineapple on my pizza, I like pineapple on my pizza. I hope y'all don't hate me for that. That's fine. We can agree to disagree on that kind of stuff. When it comes to whether or not my ancestors should be allowed to come on a boat while they're fleeing oppression and murder, maybe that's not a place where we're able to agree and disagree. Finally, the last idea of justice is that equality is seen as a component of injustice, which some have often made an exception for the sake of expediency. That's a whole nother can of worms that I don't think that we're going to discuss here because we're getting towards the end of where we're at. You see, the word died in the 1800s because it's not as useful as earn. Earn is so clear. Earn is so mathematical. Some obsolete meanings of the word deserve were to earn, to win, and to reward, to give in return for service. Transactional, mathematical, understandable, not vague. The thing about mathematical transactions is that when 2 + 2 = 4, everybody's equal on both sides and everybody's happy. There's no way for a gatekeeper to create some vagary. And that's what language often does, is it's some vagary so that we can take some things over. So while the word fell apart in the 1800s, and if you look at, I didn't bring this up, but I should have brought this up to share. The Google has an Ngram viewer where they show the usage of words throughout time, and it fell off the map, almost completely unused until about the 1980s. And the 1980s got really popular with a very familiar phrase in 1987 film. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. That's the homie Gordon Gekko from Wall Street. Funny thing about art and life and how they imitate each other and all that stuff. People are always like, oh, it's like one does the other and then the other does the one thing. Wall Street guys didn't dress like this until that movie came out. They didn't talk like this. They didn't live like this. They needed some Dristies, some hero, some Joker to ride behind. But anyway, Gordon Gekko, Wall Street, the 80s, the idea that greed is good, greed being the short-sighted thing that it is. Greed is an area where you could say that you deserve something even if you didn't earn it. The idea of finance in of itself got so popular that in 1986, nearly half of the senior class of Yale applied for their jobs at First Boston, which was a leading investment bank. The graduates were known as yuppies. That's where the yuppie thing came from, young urban professionals. Michael Keaton, who, in the words of historian Christopher Lasch, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your name, they had a new goal: get it while you can, which reminds me of the CEOs of today who are only working for the quarter. Stock market crashed on October 19th, 1987, and a lot of those Yale grads were SOL, completely out of luck. See, deserve is about control. See, these qualities, who I think I am on the inside, the law of attraction, it's like blame and it's praise for nebulous reasons. You deserve to have bad things happen to you. Your sadness, your pain, your disease, your poverty are all your fault because of actions you've done in the past, or because of your qualities, because of things like you, because of actions your people have done in the past, because of stuff that folks who look like you or might be like you have done in the past. You deserve good things. You deserve riches, fame, desirability, power, because people like you have gotten them before. Because no one else has stopped you from getting them before. I showed a clip of BoJack Horseman earlier, and I don't know if y'all saw that show, but the reason why he had to ask people constantly, am I a good person? Do you think I'm a good person? I must be a good person on the inside, is because for the majority of his life, he got rewards. He got good things. He only started to question himself when he stopped getting those rewards, when he got consequences instead. When all we receive are rewards, we think that we've earned them. When all we receive are lashes, we think we deserve them. The ends justify the means, even if the means don't mean anything. And that's how our word dies. Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all on Thursday with Jose Trejo Maya. Peace.